come back to you on we're going to talk a little bit some of the specific subjects that schools are dealing with, and I want to talk a little bit about charter schools and choice. And I wanted to start with that end of the table because you guys were the folks who were in place when the movement began in New Jersey or close to it. And curious your thoughts of has it grown or languished as much as you thought it would? Are there things that you would have done differently then, knowing the state of current affairs? Speak a little bit about charter schools and where we've come.
You go first?
Yeah, sure.
Very good. Well, that was a messy change process. It was a political process, highly political process, and the ultimate goal was for New Jersey to start experiencing greater educational opportunities beyond what we had. And at the time, we were just about, I think we're just a few years shy of the Abbott preschool program. So pretty much at the time, and they certainly were a few years shy of the interdistrict public school choice program. So pretty much we had vocational schools, and that's just about it in terms of educational choice that was available on a non-economic basis. Of course, parents could always pay for educational opportunity, but for a public school system. And so this is something where it was a political process, most definitely. There's a whole bunch of strange allies in that political process coming together and agreeing that we wanted to start walking down this road. And did the law have everything that I wanted or Governor Whitman wanted? No, it didn't. Did it have things that the education associations wanted to keep out? No, it didn't. It was a true compromise to move a issue forward, and it did. And I think we've had a large number of schools moving forward, and it's a good time now to reassess what we want to do and where we want to go with those schools.
What did you leave out then that now you might have second thoughts or would be old hat to where we are now?
I would have still liked to give governing bodies of those charter schools greater freedom to put together contracts, to put together curriculums than they had, and certainly providing them with facilities, incentives, I think also would have been a great idea.
Bill?
I regret that I was not successful as I wanted to be in changing the nature of that discussion away from charters and public schools as we've now defined it, which I think is unfortunate, to emphasize public school choice, because that's what I think we need. And public school choice can go beyond charters, and it isn't synonymous with charters. And given the fact that I think that we've stacked the deck against charters, hasn't helped us expand the opportunities. Now, you can do that inside districts, and I've always encouraged my colleagues who are in big places to start their own charters and start their own kinds of opportunities. I think it is good for teachers, it's good for kids, and it's good for parents as well. That's what we need. We need to move away from charters versus public schools and things like that. I once proposed in a very small district that what we would create is a lab district. That is, we take the district, which was organized under one set of principles, and offer two. And that when we did that, it was amazing how many teachers were intrigued by the idea of operating in a place where they had greater say over how we would do this. I think there's tremendous opportunities if we change the focus to public school choice. And the reason why I do that is that I'm nervous about vouchers because I'm nervous about our ability to really supervise well private entities in charters. Not because I think that they're evil or anything like that, but we haven't even demonstrated we can do the public side of this well. Why would we want to expand it beyond that? But there's plenty we could do, and that's part of what I think is a really interesting horizon we ought to visit.
Lucille,
well,
next.
I think the public school choice issue, Bill, I agree with you. I think that's the place where the focus ought to be. You know, I think that we tried to solve in the funding formula the issue of charter schools not getting equitable share of funding, particularly in the urban districts, because they were not sharing in all the extra aid that came through the Abbott decisions. They were just getting the regular per pupil core curriculum aid, I think it was called back then. The other piece of that, though, was that the districts weren't losing funds as a result of losing students. And so there was no impact on the district. In fact, if anything, they actually had more money because they lost the child but didn't lose the funding. We tried to, I think we tried to correct some of that. I think you have to do that if charters are going to have the effect that you hope that they will. On the other hand, I feel really strongly that this can't just be about trying to create choice and hoping that choice, public or private, somehow changes what happens in the districts that remain. At the end of the day, the regular public school district serves every child in the neighborhood, whether mommy or daddy wants to get on the bus and take another bus and take another bus and go to a lottery to sign go to sign the child up and then go to a lottery, or whether or not the parent agrees that they'll come to all the teacher conferences and participate in all the parent activities. There are lots of kids who get served in regular public schools who have parents who will never do that. And so we can't forget about that, and we can't forget about the fact that there are going to be public schools serving children like that, and that has to be part of the focus. The waiting for Superman idea, I think, really takes us off track to a large degree. I think that we have some wonderful charters in New Jersey. We also have some really low-performing charters that do no better than any of the public schools, in the districts in which they exist. And I think that national statistics and research bears that out as well, that charter schools in some cases do better, but in many cases do not. And so I don't think that's the panacea and the answer to all of the issues. And certainly from a funding perspective, unless you really do change the structure, I'm not sure that they have the impact that you hope even on the rest of the public schools.
Vito, you wanted to add something?
That's, I had in my notes here the word panacea, no panacea, but thank you, Lucille. I agree with you on that. I think there's a place for charter schools, but I think we did not take the time to properly organize our thoughts at the department in terms of how we could do it and do it better than what the youngsters were getting in their public school. In the short period of time that I was commissioner, I think I disallowed more charter schools than I approved. And looking back now at the statistics, especially the Stanford Center for Research on Educational Outcomes, I went looking for research that would prove what I believed was my opinion, and it says exactly what Lucille said. There are some excellent charter schools in New Jersey, and I visited the excellent ones, certainly Robert Treat in Newark and the Lead Academy down in Camden. But every once in a while you had to remind yourself, geez, these kids are doing well in school, in this particular school. Might they have been doing just as well if they went to their neighborhood school? And of course, the question is, probably not. And the one ingredient that I believed was missing was parental involvement. Yes, they spent more time in school. Yes, another day of the week was spent in school. Yes, there were some summer hours that they were spending in school. And yes, they wore a uniform. But in most cases, I think, again, it leads us back to the capacity issue. I think that if the department had the capacity, they would review the charter schools in terms of what they said they were going to do as opposed to what they were doing. And I'm afraid, as research points out, a lot of the charter schools that are presently, not only in the United States working, I mean, that study involved only 16 states, but I believe that there are a lot of charter schools in New Jersey, if they were subjected to the same scrutiny as the public schools, they would be closed. The scores, if we're using test scores, in the beginning, they're muddled. Sometimes they're less, they're lower than the public school scores. I think the longer they stay in a charter school, perhaps the scores are increased, but there's a lot more to going to school than just test scores. So I think there's a place for charter schools. I, for instance, would favor the choice bill that Senators Kane and Lesniak are proposing, whereby corporations provide scholarships to needy youngsters to select a school either within their district or outside their school district, and use that as a choice, because it doesn't involve separating the state aid from the school district where they would be attending.
But that would be funded by state tax credits, correct?
Yes, it would. Yes, it would. That's the difference. But the impact isn't felt immediately to the taxpayer in that community. And I hope at some point, before the curtain goes down today, we talk about public enemy number one in the state of New Jersey. It's the tax structure specifically dealing with property taxes. All of the things that we would like to see as commissioners or as citizens in this state, we look with a jaundiced eye because of the way money is raised to support education in our state.